Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcast because People of Distinction is a nationally and internationally syndicated show because of listeners like you. Our shows are available across all major podcast distributors as well as YouTube. And if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. We appreciate the support. Continue to like and follow and sit back and strap in because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Larry Durham. We're going to be discussing his amazing book, View from the Front Row, The Jesus Movement. That's available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, a whole host of other places. You're going to want to head on over there, pick up your copies, and I'm going to tell you why you need to do that in just a few moments. Before we go any further, though, I want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that Larry was brought to us by one of the best publishing firms in the business. People you already know, I'm talking about Citi of Books. So for my writers out there who have written their masterpiece and now you need help moving the book you developed. Contact Citi of Books, people, because this is exactly what they specialize in. And you're going to want to head on over to citiofbooks.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is a true pleasure to have Larry here on the line. Now, right there in the subtitle, you got an idea of the discussion we're getting ready to have. But people, I promise you, an idea is all you got. Until you pick up this book, until you start to read the words on those pages, man, you are in store for a treat, all right? This is an informative narrative created to bring about awareness, right? It was written directly firsthand experience from Larry's experience in this quote-unquote Jesus movement, right? In this surge that happened during the 60s and the 70s, right? Where there was just a big mass following of people that infused the church, that got back involved. And this is a discussion that I'm thoroughly looking forward to because people, you've heard me mention on a number of previous occasions, I would never consider myself a religious person, right? I wasn't brought up in the church, and I wasn't necessarily ever a follower in that regard. But that doesn't mean that I haven't had my curiosities. That doesn't mean that I haven't dabbled and read the Bible here and there, right? This is something that I'm very interested in. It's very intriguing to me because also when we juxtapose it against contemporary churches, again, from an outside perspective, I don't know for sure. We see these mega churches on TV, but all those little ones, all the local churches, at least from conversations that I've had with those around me, there seems to be a slight decline. Well, I'm interested now to see the difference between what has happened in the past few decades when we're going from this surge of followers that came to the church roughly around the 70s to now, and why there has been, I guess, that discrepancy. Listen, at the end of the day, Larry is the man of the hour. All right, he's going to be able to articulate it all much better than I ever could. Sit back, strap in, and get ready for a wonderful conversation. And by the time we've concluded, you're going to have to purchase the book, people. We're not giving it all away here today. You know what you got to do. Larry, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
Well, doing great. I'm looking forward to this, too. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Of course, man. Listen, we're thoroughly looking forward to this, Larry. I know my listening audience is as well. Your book has a lot of information that we're going to be able to take and run with, and the fact that it was written directly from your own experience. We know that this is something that is true, right? It's not just an opinion-based thing or, again, you lived it, man. All right. So your information is coming directly from the horse's mouth, I guess, as my grandmother would say, to steal a little phrase there from her. Larry, before we jump into the book, let's start off by learning a little bit more about yourself And because this obviously talks about your background, there may be some overlap. If so, not a problem whatsoever. But start off by telling us a little bit more about who is Larry Durham.
Oh, wow. I'm an old man now. Used to be young. Well, actually, I was born in the sandhills of Nebraska. And my mom passed away when I was 11, and my dad remarried and moved to Salt Lake, Southern California. And we kind of grew up in a little beach town. Loved to surf, loved the sand. We left the sand hills and went to the sand on the beach, and it was much preferable there at the beach. And we really enjoyed it. Went to school there, joined the Air Force in the mid-'60s, and met my wife, married. We spent about 3 years in Anchorage, Alaska. Returned after I got out of the service to Southern California, and was very involved in entertainment industry, in the printed packaging and development of manufacturing of all sorts of media. Involved in the Jesus movement at Calvary Chapel, started in 1971. And actually we moved from that area in 82 and back in 94. So involved in Calvary Chapel in that movement for a number of different time periods, and we really, really enjoyed that. Yeah. We stayed in the entertainment industry for about 35 years. We are holder of about 13 packaging patents, and we run a number of manufacturing facilities in the States. And we kind of enjoyed that involvement. We're an entrepreneur in the sense that we like to invent things, and we spend a lot of time doing research and design work. I'm also electromechanical engineer actually, and served helping hands. We do a lot of volunteer. After a retirement, I started writing My Thoughts for Today, which is a short devotional, and it deals with current events, situations, daily living, and heavily on encouragement. I've written about, 850 of them. I'm a cancer survivor. I had esophageal cancer. And at the time I retired, and they removed my esophagus, and it's a whole different lifestyle, but I'm a survivor, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm very involved in our church. We host life groups weekly in our home, and we teach a men's group at our church. We're involved in our HOA, landscaping. Wherever we live, we like to get involved with people around us, neighbors, and show them God's love. And that's kind of who I am.
Larry, my goodness, man. I love how you close it out like, and that's how I am, as if that was just a small thing that we just uncovered. People, we can invite him back just to discuss his background. My goodness. I'm telling you, this man is a person of distinction through and through, and we are here for it. Welcome to the show once again. Thoroughly looking forward to this discussion. We've already started to go into the narrative a bit. But now let's go in a little bit further. And since we've started on it already, we're going to tie in. It's going to be a multi-part question. First and foremost, tell us a little bit more about your book, View from the Front Row. And then secondly, what inspired you to write it?
Well, actually, let me first say, I really had no intentions of writing a book. I never thought I'd like to read, but I never thought I'd write a book. And but after the movement movie, actually the Jesus movement movie that was put out, a lot of questions came up, and since a few of our friends knew that we were involved in that at the very beginning in the 70s, we started in the late 70s, and we were kind of disenchanted with the church we were going to because we weren't getting much depth out of it. Yeah. And ended up at this Calvary Chapel, and that being involved in seeing what was happening, I thought, man, people are asking me about this all the time now. And we'd gone to the Billy Graham Cove for a seminar, and one of the speakers there said, "Has anybody seen the movie?" And a number of people said, yeah. And one guy said, hey, we were there. So they said, well, let's talk about that. So during break, we were talking about how we were involved in what was going on and all that. And just a lot of interest was piqued. How were these hippies and people, kids that have just about done everything else out there, found that they were still lacking and needed something. So that whole movement was really interesting. And I think more than anything is that when we were a part of it, we didn't expect it to be a movement. It was just a good thing. But then after the movie came out, we said, maybe we should write down some thoughts of it. And we started doing that. And I think within maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I had an outline for what I wanted to do, a chapter heading, and just thoughts. And so away we went with it. And I had a number of friends that a couple of them are mentors, and a couple of them I'm mentoring. And so I sent them the first chapter of the book, and they got all excited and wanted to hear more about it. And next thing you know, I'm getting calls from all over the place. People I'd met or hadn't been involved with for years in the entertainment industry, wanting to know, what's going on, or what are you doing?
Yeah.
So got to share that way. So away it went, and we ended up with about 10 chapters. It's a small book. It shows our heart, what went on, and it shows it from our position. But again, everything I'd read seemed to be from the leadership of the movement and not from, the laity and all.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wrote it from that perspective. Like I said, I wasn't planning on writing a book, and there I am writing a book.
Well, listen, Larry, we're glad that you did, man, because now we have this as a gift to then embark upon ourselves. Curiosity for myself here with this next one. In your opinion, was the surge in followers primarily a response to spiritual needs, or was it more deeply connected to the societal and even political unrest of the time?
Man, I'll tell you what, those things were almost parallel. You're in California, and in California, back in the 60s, there were in Long Beach called the Pike, and we had twin roller coasters. And these two roller coasters, cyclones, would run parallel to each other. And they'd start them off together, and they'd be running. One would go right, one would go left, and they'd come back into it. And I feel like that's what this was. It was a roller coaster ride running parallel with spirituality, and yet the political scene that was going on, where the war was, whether you agreed with it or whether it was a mistake or whatever, it just tore people up. It tore families apart.
Yeah.
And drugs and free love and all the stuff that was going on at the time. And there was a void. Something was missing. You tried everything else, and they needed something else. And they stumbled in and found that what they really needed was a relationship with God. And that's how that started. And to find out that these same people that had been through all this crud was loved and appreciated and could be used and could have this void filled. Man, I'll tell you, using broken people and realizing that, hey, God can use anybody and does.
Yeah.
That just went wild.
Well,
the church didn't care for it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Church was, you need to, there's a format, there's a dress code, there's rules, there's regulations. You need to follow these things. But at Calvary Chapel, they threw it out. They said, you come as you are. In fact, one time they put new carpeting in, and the board got a little concerned about the barefoot hippies coming in. They're going to ruin the carpeting. Pastor Chuck called a meeting and said, we got to do something about this. He said, so let's get in and start moving pews because the carpet's coming out. Because the carpet is not going to keep one person from being able to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So exciting times.
You know,
you know what? It's still the same today. There's still a void that's out there because people are tired of trying to live up to religion, and especially in the world today, religion has taken a back seat, and probably rightfully so because of all the stuff that goes on politically and all, and how hate has motivated so much of what we do today, and so somewhere along the line, we have to get back to that relationship that we care for other people. You know, when they asked Jesus what was the greatest commandment, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And in these you fulfill everything. The rest of the law doesn't matter if you don't love. So, anyways, I get a little preachy at times because
Larry,
I really serious, and we talk about these things, and it just get me going again. So.
Larry, listen, man, it is time to start preaching. Okay, people, first and foremost, let me just plug the book again. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's a lot of other places. It's called View from the Front Row, The Jesus Movement by Larry Durham. I love what you're talking about here, Larry, because, and this is, it's hard not to get, I'm not trying to get political here, because we don't have a political podcast, right? I mean, we are all about, we're in the business of love, similar to what you're talking about here. We're in the business of love. We're in the business of sharing stories, because each one of us, as cliche as it may sound, each one of us have a distinct voice, and we love using our platform as a microphone to showcase it. And we celebrate our differences here, and that is something that I don't recognize being celebrated in our community anymore, or being celebrated in our community at large. Again, not to get political, but you look at our political climate and really our society, the country on a whole. There's so much division. There is so much, like you said, hate, that and anger that is being spewed. And I look at a lot of it, keeping it towards the religious community, because that's, of course, the discussion that we're having here. I know a lot of people that are very religious, heavily involved in their churches. And again, I'm all for it, man. Like, I don't have anything against it. To each their own. But one of the things that I constantly come back to is a lot of the people that I know that are heavily invested in Christianity, but then are so quick to point blame or to try to, isolate others. We have this big thing, again, trying not to get political, but let's just use this example. We have this all-out assault currently happening against immigrants in this country. And I know specifically against illegal immigrants at this moment, although that is a rabbit hole that we can also go down in terms of if it's solely geared towards illegal immigrants or how far that's going to go. But there is an all-out assault against that. And I look at it, and a lot of times it's some of the Christian people that I know in my circle that are so against it. And then I look at it, and again, I'm not a very religious person, so I can't quote the Bible like so many others, although I know that at least one quote that I find in the Bible is love thy neighbor, right? And I look around and I'm like, man, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of loving of your neighbor that's happening. We have gotten so divided in this country, and that I think is a problem.
When we get into political things, we have a tendency to separate. Mm-hmm. But when we get into reality and truth, we have a tendency to bring people back together.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that like this. We have a constitution, and we have rules, and these rules, we have a way of making rules, we have a way of changing rules. We have a system. The system worked. But when we don't follow the system, then things run amok. Yeah. And then everybody starts going at each other. We need to go back to some basic, foundational principles that we should build everything we do on, because they're true, they're time tested, and they don't change. When we get into the changing of things in order because of my attitude or my ideas, or I don't like that, or I'll move or whatever. Let me give you one example. Yesterday in the car, we went over to Billy Graham Library yesterday. We had a couple that came down from Lexington. And my wife said, hey, 47 in 47 days. And she was referring to Trump. Well, president will be in 47 days, will be inaugurated. Mm-hmm. And he's the 47th president, 47. So a friend of mine mentioned it to one of his children, and they got peeved about it because why would you tell that? We don't like Trump. We don't like. See, that the problem is it separates. Because you can't even joke or even have a good time because there's so much hatred over the political things, and we were never supposed to do that. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to say, hey, I'm going to vote for the person I think is the right person. They said, no. You're party affiliated. If you don't put your party, then you're not really who you say you are. So we have a tendency to judge people, and it tears down society so much instead of trying to, like you said, love each other. And this world needs, all we need is love. And that's really truthful. If you really love people, I love it, and cared for your neighbor, there wouldn't be these issues because they wouldn't matter. Yeah. Because you would see that the love matters more than that. It outweighs it. Just like those hippies that thought that all these other ways were the way to find fulfillment, and they found that it wasn't. But when they were loved and allowed to receive, it became dynamic. Half of them became ministers. There's over 3,500 Calvary chapels in America right now. I mean, that denomination, it was never intended to be a denomination because it wasn't trying to be a religious organization. It was trying to have a relationship to teach people, equip them for their relationship with God, mm-hmm. and to do it. It's our point is that there's a scripture that says, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Our testimony is important because our story is what God has done in our lives. And as we share that with others, there's other people that need to hear those kinds of things. Yeah. But we do it by drawing them together through love. Political, all the rest of that stuff, it has a tendency to leave love out of it. So anyway, I preach a lot.
I love it, man. Listen, conversations like this need to be had much more often. And that's the reason why this book is the precipice of so much. Regardless of your background or your belief, go into it with an open mind. If you find that you are not a quote-unquote believer, you're not a follower, this is still a book for you. Because it's going to help open your eyes to certain things. It's going to help open your eyes to a different perspective that maybe you're not currently viewing things from. That's not a problem. Allow yourself, again, to go into it with an open mind. Start conversations with those around you, because that's the only way that we get back to a true United States of America. Because I'd say, man, right now we are anything but united. Okay, we're a collection of states. We are not united. This is the precipice of a lot. Larry, as we close out of here, man, I'm curious to know, again, given the fact that you are writing this book from a firsthand experience, you viewed this movement. Well, now let's take some of the wisdom that you learned and let's try to implement it here today. What lessons from this surge that you experienced do you believe are most relevant for modern religious institutions that are facing their own challenges or opportunities? What advice or things could you see that could be pulled from that movement and maybe implemented today?
I think it goes back to that very basic thing that you accept people where they are.
Yeah.
And you love them, you share them with them, you listen to what they have to say, and you make them a part of you. You don't try to change them. We're not God. We are only here to lead people to God, so that God can do what he wants to do in their lives. We're all not going to be Billy Grahams, but we're all going to have the same love that Billy Graham had. We should have. And when we do that, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. Because when you love each other and care for each other and listen to each other, then they're respected. They respect you. But when you come out with somebody, a cause or whatever it is, and you're trying to push your cause, you're pushing people away because they're not going to accept your cause if they don't feel that their cause is what they want. And people don't want things pushed down their throat. They want to feel like they have an opportunity to question, to ask, to be a part of things because you're accepting them where they are. And the churches today seem to have lost that ability to, that song that says, come as you are. It doesn't matter who you are. Just come and receive. Come believe. And come be filled with what God would want for you. Not what we want for you, but what God wants for you. And then be a part of us and share. And together we can do wonderful things in the world because of what God's love is meant for each of us.
Love that.
I think we're missing that. We want to get tied up into all the other things. And we do a lot of things like keep score, fill out paperwork, I don't know, just a number of things that becomes religious. And you have to do this, you have to do that, and you repeat this and you repeat that. Instead of coming from the heart, it comes from memory. And it has to come from the heart.
People, there are so many gems that we uncovered during today's episode, but please believe it, we've barely scratched the surface. You got to pick up copies of this amazing book, add it to your shelf, get it as a gift to add to someone else's. And one phrase that I'm taking from it, but again, there have been a ton of gems, is the reference, a little homage here paid to the Beatles, but all you need is love. And unconditional love, right? Because that's the main point here, is like, listen, not love for like-minded individuals, not love for those that come from the same kind of community or background as you. No. There's no conditions on this, man. We have to love each other. Because I promise you, again, another cliche, but it's so true. There is much more that connects us than separates us. There's a lot happening, and this book is going to get you on that journey. It's a start. It's not going to pull you all the way to completion, but it's a start. It's going to get you thinking. It's going to get you talking. Head on over there, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pick up your copies. Larry, this has been a true pleasure, man. Thank you very much for the wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you for writing this amazing book, but most importantly, thank you for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Wow, I'm honored. I'm really honored. Thank you for the opportunity.